So we're going to start. Welcome to our March 1st meeting of Base Democrats Club. As you know, it's a 45th Assembly District. I always repeat it, but one more time, I see a lot of new members, new guests, and we welcome everybody. Door is open all the time, we never close the door here for anybody. We can agree to disagree, but all of us like a family, because each time I see more and more people, and we like each other, we respect each other, and this is the whole point of, that's why it's called a club, So, unfortunately, Margarita Kagan, she's still not in New York City. She's coming back tomorrow. She will be at the next club meeting. She knows about this meeting. She couldn't make it tonight. So, Margarita is not here tonight, but again, she sends you all best regards. You know, she loves you all. Tonight we have a very busy schedule. In fact, it's even more packed than I thought before. We have several very good guests. We are not going to discuss tonight, probably because of the lack of time, national politics. So the only national thing we will discuss tonight is hate crimes wave, which basically covers the entire United States of America. But we'll talk about it a little bit later. For now, as promised last time, and as promised in all this advertising, tonight we have an honorable guest. Last club meeting, you all met and talked to several candidates for Brooklyn District Attorney seat. It's a very hotly contested seat this year. It's a very important seat. We're talking about the highest law enforcement officer in Kings County, the largest borough in New York City. It's a very important position. And as you know, tonight I invited current acting district attorney, Eric Gonzalez. Last time we had 3 candidates, John Ganjemi, I believe he's here. Hi, John. And Ann Sworn was last time, and Patricia Gatling. And I received 2 more calls from 2 other candidates. Maybe we will be able to listen to them next month if they will show up. So next club meeting is, I think, April 6th. First Wednesday of the month, 7 p.m. I believe it's April 6th.
Week before Pesach.
Okay, good, great. So April 6th, 7 p.m. is the next club meeting, always first Wednesday of the month. And now, without further ado, I want to introduce our guest tonight, Acting District Attorney of Brooklyn, Eric Gonzalez. So, one more time. Okay, I wanted to say a few words. I introduced every candidate, as you know. I wanted to say a few words about Eric. So, some of you probably know that Eric worked for Brooklyn District Attorney Charles Hines. He worked for Brooklyn District Attorney Kenneth Thompson. When Kenneth Thompson became sick, he decided that he announced that he will temporarily leave office to get a treatment. And he decided, out of all people who worked for him, that the best person to run the office is Eric Gonzalez. That was not my choice, that was not your choice, that was a choice of Kenneth Thompson, who was elected as District Attorney of Brooklyn, and who was praised universally everywhere for doing a good job. So he decided that Eric Gonzalez is equally good to run the office while he was getting the treatment. Unfortunately, Ken Thompson passed away, and Eric Gonzalez is now running this office, which probably gives him some advantage in terms of name recognition, in terms of ability to show that he is up to the job. And I'm on the mailing list getting press releases from Brooklyn District Attorney Office, and every time I receive press release, I'm saying, wow, that's great, wow, that's fabulous. Just like I believe 2 days ago, I received press release from District Attorney Office about new unit called Cold Cases Unit, because sometimes justice delayed, you know what I'm talking about. It's very important that we always find perpetrators of crime. And even if it's 4 years ago, 5 years ago, victims are not saying, okay, forget about it. Victims are demanding the justice anyway, even after several years. So that's so important to have such unit, and I'm glad this now we will have this unit. Also, I want to acknowledge we have Councilman Hein Deutsch, who is helping me. He will say a few words later, okay? If you don't mind. So, welcome, Acting Brooklyn District Attorney, Eric Gonzalez. Thank you.
So I'm going to start by apologizing. I lost my voice, which actually never happens to me, but it happened. I've been a prosecutor in Brooklyn for over 2 decades. I've been a prosecutor under Mr. Hines, under Mr. Thompson, and I come from Brooklyn. I live in Brooklyn. This neighborhood actually is part of the area of the community that I oversaw for many years. I was the chief of one of the trial divisions that oversaw Coney Island, Bensonhurst, Brighton Beach, Gravesend, and so I'm very familiar with this community. In fact, I went to John Dewey High School, so this is a community that I know very well for many, many years. Myself, I actually grew up in East New York, and so I grew up in East New York when East New York was a difficult and violent place in Brooklyn. The year that I went to law school, there were 821 homicides that took place in Brooklyn, just Brooklyn alone. And a good number of those homicides and those shootings took place in the neighborhood that I grew up in. So I was very concerned as a young man about crime, about people becoming involved in drugs and gangs and violence. And as a young boy, I dreamed of trying to make a difference in my own community, and I wanted to become a prosecutor because I understood that a prosecutor had this special responsibility. That responsibility was to always to seek justice, but to also make sure that the community was safe. And I didn't know much about being a prosecutor. I'm talking about when I was in high school. I learned about it from reading a book. You see, my family had come from Puerto Rico, so we were not as familiar with everything as, you know, a lot of people whose families were from, you know, United States. But I was able to advance. Education was the key. I went to college, went to law school, and in 1995, Charles J. Hines gave me the opportunity to serve all of you as an assistant district attorney. And it was an incredible experience. I worked my way up the ranks. I was a trial attorney. I was assigned to the Domestic Violence Bureau. Then I worked with sexually abused young boys mostly. I was in the Sex Crimes Bureau. And eventually I graduated into trying homicide cases, which was something that I wanted to do because it brought me back to the reason why I was looking to be in the DA's office, was to bring justice to people who had lost family members. And so I was able to do that. I see one of my fellow former ADAs here, Arthur Gershfeld. And I became a supervisor in the DA's office, and I supervised both criminal court and Supreme Court. And in 2013, something incredible happened to me. Ken Thompson won that election, and he asked me to join his executive staff. He had heard about me from many judges and defense attorneys and people in the community that there was a prosecutor who had a skin in the game. And I say that that's an important part because my decision making, my thinking about what justice should look like in Brooklyn was based on growing up in Brooklyn as a young man and wanting to make sure that my community was always safe, that we were always above board in being, treating people with respect and dignity, that we never lost sight that the people who come into the criminal justice system deserve to be treated with respect, and that we should be making sure that there's justice on both sides, both for the victims, but also for the accused. And he asked me to put together the conviction review unit for him, and that's what I did. That conviction review unit has become the national model, and I'm very proud of my work that I did for Mr. Thompson in that unit. We have vacated 22 wrongful convictions. People who went to trial, 95% of them were charged with homicides. The important part is to understand, but for that, they would have never gotten out of jail because they had life sentences at the tail end. I also worked on something that I think along with fundamental fairness is whether or not people should be rearrested on low-level violation summonses because they didn't pay the fine. And so these summons warrants, there's 1.5 million summons warrants, and a good number of them are from Brooklyn. And what you would be shocked to learn is that these are not criminal offenses. These people walking the dog off a leash, drinking an open container, being in the park after dark, not criminal offenses, but if you fail to pay the fine, the $25 summons, you would get a warrant for your arrest, no different than that same type of warrant as if you had committed a felony or a misdemeanor. And so we've been moving, and I've been moving as your acting DA to get those warrants vacated because those things do not keep us safe, and in fact, they cause problems. When we started vacating warrants, one of the reasons we did was because the police often have to arrest someone they don't want to arrest on an old warrant. 15 years, there was a case recently I saw a person who was smoking a cigarette many years ago too close to the building, had gotten a violation for smoking too close to the building, never paid the ticket. The ticket would have probably been 20 bucks, but now spent 19 hours in, and it was a woman, spent 19 hours in jail on that case. And that does not strike me as fair or just, and so I'm moving to vacate those warrants. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to continue doing the good work that we've started in Brooklyn. All of you know that Brooklyn is among the safest parts of big cities. We had 15 less homicides last year. We were down 15% in shootings. We were down 20% in burglaries. We were down 16% in robberies. So the county continues to get safe, but we're also doing many more programming to try to keep people from coming into the system. And I'm going to just tell you about one of my initiatives. I have 2 initiatives that I'm working on right now. And then I'll talk about that, and then if I have time, I'll talk a little bit about immigration issues. But one of my signature things I'm working on is a young adult court. You probably realize that young people get arrested at a very high rate compared to people of our ages, right? They're the people that are more likely to commit crime and more likely to come into the system. But historically, the system has never done anything with these young people. They come in, they come out. I've called it turnstile justice because they spend a night in jail and they come right back out. And you wonder what you have accomplished with your taxpayer dollars with these people who come in and out the system. Often they plead guilty to a misdemeanor or a violation. They get a couple days community service or time served, which is a very common thing. Time served, giving them credit for the day or 2 they spent in prison. I've asked the court system, and the court system agreed to set up a special court for 16 to 24 years of age. All the cases get funneled, and what we are looking to do, and what we started to do, we have over 400 cases already in the system, is when they meet the judge, they get arraigned, and then it's before they go home, they sit down with a social worker, a forensic social worker. That social worker will then assess, will have the paperwork about why they were arrested, and then meet with them. And what I've told the defense of bar, and instead of just giving them a sort of a nondescript punishment, community service, a couple days of jail, I would give them services that they need. So if a young person got arrested for an assault, and we get a lot of that, more than you would know, kids fighting in school, they come in, do they have a drug problem, do they have a mental health issue, do they need anger management? And instead of giving them 2 days community service, we may give them 3 days of anger management therapy. Now, I'm not doing this to not punish them. I'm actually doing this to give them the skills and the things that they need to succeed in life. I think that a young person who can't control themselves, has violent outbursts, is much more likely to be successful and not do it again if they get the treatment and therapy they need as part of their court mandate and telling them to go clean the park. While it's nice to say, here's a broom, go clean the park for a day or 2, these kind of services are useful. I think it'll make them a better child to their parent, a better sibling, a better schoolmate, hopefully better neighbors. And what I do know, and I'm confident about this, is that it's going to keep us safer. Because this in and out of the criminal justice system without anything being accomplished other than them spending a day in prison, or 2 days in prison, is not making a difference. Because the recidivism rate, which means the likelihood that these folks are going to commit a crime again, is about 75%. All right, I didn't misspeak. It's 75%. So 75% of this age bracket gets rearrested within 2 to 3 years for committing similar crimes, and then often many of them commit more violent crimes, more serious crimes. So we're going to try something new in Brooklyn. It's not being done anywhere else, but it makes common sense, and it's probably what you all think should be happening anyway, right? We're talking about rehabilitating, keeping young people out of the criminal justice system and providing those services. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I'm funding this program. I applied for a federal grant. We got $425,000, and I'm putting in about another $600,000 for about $1 million to run this program. And then finally, the last thing I'm going to say, and I'll take any questions, is we have to protect our immigrant population. What's happening right now with the movement from DC, how are you, sir, is that stuff, what's happening is not going to keep us safe. If our immigrant population is afraid to deal with the police, if our immigrant population is afraid to work with local law enforcement, come down to the DA's office and speak when they see something. We tell everyone, if you see something suspicious, say something. If our populations think that law enforcement is their enemy, that law enforcement is working against their interests, they will become more and more victims of crime, and crime will increase in these neighborhoods where you have high immigrant populations because they'll be afraid to report. But they'll also be less involved in coming forward when they see something and they say something. And justice demands that people be treated with respect, but also proportionality. The things that come up, if someone is, and this is how ridiculous it is right now, we have no idea if someone is in the car with a broken headlamp and they plead to a violation and pay the fine, is that going to be something that's going to cause them to be deported? So I've asked my staff, and we've hired, we just extended an offer to a young woman who's an immigration attorney to come on board and help us figure out what things we can do so that when we're taking dispositions in the courthouse, we're not doing something that unintentionally causes an immigration issue. So my office is going to get very involved in trying to protect immigrants, but by doing so, I think I protect all of Brooklyn, because we need our immigrant population to stand with us and not apart from us. So thank you. If there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. I'm sorry for my voice.
Sir, I have a question. And our new president, he's talking about the immigrants. This country is country of immigrants. All people, they came from outside and they got their status, and they never clear that the green card holder also they are eligible to stay here, and United States citizen, they are also immigrant, but they have status to stay here. And the student, they have student visa and they are legal. They legally enter in this country. But they never clear that what is the difference in between these, because everybody is so much scared and there is a big fear in the whole USA. Because the immigration law, they never clear that what is going on. The illegal or who they have some criminal record, they have to go out, but not all people.
Right. I want to be really clear about what my position is on this. My job is to be fair and just to everyone who comes into the Brooklyn court system in the criminal term. My job is to be fair to everyone. My job is also to make sure that justice is being done. And I sit on a committee that looks at immigration issues. I have many examples that I could bring before all of you to show you that people who have gone home to their countries to visit family members, or to visit, vacation, or see sick family members who have green cards, Now, all of a sudden, say 25 years ago, you pled to a marijuana charge or a low-level petty larceny. We're not talking about violent felons, we're talking about normal people who are being denied re-entry for the first time ever on some of this low-level stuff. And then we just also have, you know, people who are now being deported for cases where they pled guilty 20 and 25 and 30 years ago. So we have to be mindful that we have to have a criminal justice system that protects all of us, and I am committed to doing that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, so this senior has the case at your DA office. So you said you need more story, right?
This senior, he get paid up by the tenants, and then he applied the court protections, but unfortunately nobody enforced.
Well, let me do this.
Yeah.
In any kind of personal case, we can talk
Okay.
on the side and
Yeah, sure.
see what is
Okay.
not a protection or what we need. Yes.
Yeah, I'm interested in the program that you have for making sure that kids don't go back into prisons again. So I work in a high school, and I see there are kids who are in danger of probably winding up in prison. We've had a couple of kids. You know, I work in a very small school out in Coney Island, and occasionally I've already seen kids because I
What
work with Rachel Carson High School. Okay, so I see kids that I've already identified as kids who are going to be troublemakers and who are going to wind up in prison, even, you know, like doing things like fighting and constant fighting. So is there any way that the district attorney's office could ever think of a program where you could come into the schools maybe and work with us, or with some of the schools that are in danger of having that kind of a problem?
It's a great question. My wife's a teacher, by the way, a high school teacher. So we do, and I've also really expanded our programming for schools. So we have a high school internship program that we're targeting for high school students. We have an Explorers program that we're targeting for middle school and high school. We're doing a lot of different diversionary programs. We have a mentoring program. I have an anti-bullying campaign that we can bring to your school. Yeah, I was meeting with Mike Mulgrew the other day, and he's a person who obviously spent a lot of time thinking about these issues. And he said something to me that there's about a 9% of student kids in the public school system that really need, more dedicated forensic help. And so what I'm doing, unfortunately, in building this young adult court is providing those services that for the people who come in. But for the people who we could prevent from coming in, we need to do everything we can. So yes, we actually do a lot. I have a basketball program after school to keep kids out of trouble. I have a chess program. I have a soccer program in different communities. So I would love to come to the school. I would love to bring. I have a person whose entire job is to work with programming with Board of Education.
Because we have a program in our school called Restorative Justice, where we get together with the freshmen now, and we sit in a big circle and we talk. And although it's still kind of rocky at first because it's their first year doing it, with kids who have gotten into trouble, instead of punishing them, like outright punishing them, we sit down with them, we try to work with them, try to find out what the problem is, try to resolve things before we go crazy and start suspending, because suspending doesn't really work, because they just come back to the school again and start more problems. So I'm thinking your program coming into the schools and maybe preventing kids from going into jail.
Please invite us. Well, invite us, I'd come and I'd bring my staff. I have an incredible staff who likes to work with young people. And so we have a division called Youth Diversion and Investment, because it's the diversion from the court side, but it's the investment into the community. I talked about having skin in the game, but what I really should have also said is that prosecutors should meet their community. You should not meet a prosecutor for the first time because you were a victim of a crime, but because we're standing shoulder to shoulder with you to help resolve problems in the community. And so one of the things that I'm doing and changing the metrics of how a DA's office operates is to make sure that I also give credit to prosecutors, not just by the number of cases they've tried and the number of convictions that they've earned, but by are they involved in their community? Do they give back? Do they come? Do they speak out in locations? Do they make themselves available? Because at the end of the day, people who want to be prosecutors should be public servants above everything else.
I have a few questions, would be interesting like to everybody. Like first of all, not everybody here is like definitely knows how many people actually work in Brooklyn District Attorney Office, how many assistant district attorneys you have approximately, like talking about 10 people, 100 people, 50 people?
Yeah, the Brooklyn itself is a very big county, right? We're the third or fourth largest. If Brooklyn was its own city, it would be the fourth largest city in the country, and I think by the next census would be the third largest.
Right.
So we have over 1,200 employees, and I have anywhere, it ranges between, depending on the budget, between 510 to 530 prosecutors. On top of that, I have a mini police force that works just for my office. There's about 70 police officers that also work in the office. And then I have about 30 social workers that I'm using to do some of this programming work.
Very nice. Second question is about hate crimes. I already mentioned here tonight. It's a very big concern in this community, and I believe at this point all over the country. Recent wave of hate crimes, including anti-Semitic incidents, and some of them actually just happened in Brooklyn. As you probably know, what happened in Midwood High School, and like we faced various instances of anti-Semitism in colleges, and of course it's not Brooklyn, but Staten Island, JCC also was targeted, and yes, it's Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, and St. Louis, Missouri. I'm talking about Jewish cemetery and desecration. So I want you to say, how do you see your role as a chief law enforcement officer in Brooklyn to fight these hate crimes? Because a lot of instances, it's very important to send the message. Before you answer, I'll give you one info. Kenneth Thompson filed hate crimes charges against the guy who punched Leonard Petlach, executive director of Kings BY, into face after the Barclay Center in Brooklyn. Leonard Petlach just leaving the basketball game with Maccabi Tel Aviv. He was leaving the Barclay Center with his kids. And this guy came to him, punched him into the face several times. Leonard was hospitalized, had 8 stitches on his face. And Kenneth Thompson filed not just others, but also hate crime charge. Unfortunately, members of the jury decided, it's not so serious. He didn't know that Leonard Petlach was Jewish and blah, blah, blah. Right now, as a result of this decision by the jury, of course, we respect the jury system in America, but this guy received 2 years probation, 8 years community service and fine. He didn't pay fine, he didn't do any kind of probation, and he didn't do any kind of community service. In fact, he decided to fly to Turkey. Now he's in Turkey and doing TV shows there. Can you imagine? So of course, US and Turkey have a bilateral extradition agreement. Hopefully we'll get him back, and he will actually spend finally jail time for what he did. But my point is, it was obviously jail time. It was obviously hate crime, because this guy before that participated in a rally against horrible Israel right in front of his Barclay Center. And he knew exactly who Leonard Petlach was, because he was in a group of people with Israeli flags. So obviously he didn't punch him just for fun. He knew exactly what he was doing. So, but my point, how important role of prosecutor.
And we should say that he was convicted. He wasn't convicted of the elevated hate crime. They did convict him of the assault 3. We asked for 2 years jail on the case, and then the judge did not do that, and then he fled. So when he comes back, he'll be held accountable, and he'll come back. We'll get him. It takes time, sometimes these extraditions, but we'll get him, and he'll be held accountable. On the hate crimes, my role on this is pretty simple. I have to speak out, I have to take leadership, I have to condemn all forms of bigotry and hate crimes and anti-Semitism, because if you vacillate, if you don't speak out, then people think it's okay, right? And you have to educate our young because a lot of these hate crimes, happen from younger people. But as a law enforcement side of it, right, there's the educational campaign from the law enforcement side, but it's pretty simple what I need to do. I need to put the resources into investigating the cases and to prosecute the cases. And we hold people accountable. And so that's what we've done. Last year, we created a hate crimes unit in Brooklyn. So we have a civil rights group, but we have a group that focuses on hate crimes. And our hate crimes unit has a 24-hour task hotline that's picked up 24 hours a day for people to be able to report hate crimes. We've known in many places, if someone calls the police and says, this person said this to me, they made these insults, they were harassing me. In some of those cases, the police didn't think that was enough for an arrest. So I created a hotline, so to say, if you call us, we will independently investigate. We actually have a very good relationship with the part of the police department that does investigate hate crimes. But like anything else, I said I have about 70 police officers that work in the DA's office, and we will send them out and investigate hate crimes that cause the crime.
Yeah, today one church in Manhattan also was desecrated with swastikas, so it looks like it's some kind of wave of hate crimes.
And it's nationwide.
Nationwide.
It's nationwide. I will say in Brooklyn, we're up, but we're not up as they are in other parts of the country. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I don't speak English.
I will translate.
Нарикл. Хакеров вылавливают, в космос летают, на Луну высаживались. Почему же нельзя поймать тех, кто звонят и говорят, что школы заминированы?
Bella saying that Bella.
И памятники вандалов на память.
She is saying that at this point it's easier to find who is hacking someone's emails or to find someone on the moon than to find someone who is responsible for destroying 100 tombstones on Jewish cemetery or regularly calling all over Jewish centers all over the country. So far not a single person was arrested or fined.
I mean, it's a national disgrace, and it's a national disgrace. I think on the national level, people did not come out and speak out so forcefully in the beginning when it started, and there wasn't a lot of resources dedicated to it. New York, the governor has spoken out and has put resources into it. The mayor has spoken out and put resources into it. And as your local district attorney, I have a unit dedicated to this. I have a 24-hour hotline. And I want so everyone understands what a 24-hour hotline means, is that I'm paying someone to be able to answer that phone 24 hours a day in order to take these cases so that we can do a prompt investigation and prosecute as necessary.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, hi. My name is Jeff. I work as a
And listen, my last comments are, the Brooklyn DA's office is here to service all of you. I'm here to keep the community safe. I'm also here to deal with issues when people feel that as the victim or someone is not getting justice. So if there are things you feel you need, I strongly encourage all of you to reach out. We may not always agree on every topic, every issue, but what I will tell you is that I'm always striving for justice, I'm always striving for fairness, and I think that we'll figure it out 95% of the time. So thank you, it's nice to meet all of you.
Thank you.